Well, let's see here. Hang on, there we go. Alrighty, we're going to take a look a little bit. I'm just going to look at the big numbers and the big themes in this report. Basically, if you take a look at the report, what jumps out at me, and this is digging into this report table 1, and they go through all the subcategories of GDP. And what jumps out at me is if you take a look at the big gross private domestic investment, take a look here, it's at negative 13.5%. And you scroll down and take a look at the numbers tell the same. Let's just go across that top line where you take a look at 2020 and the 2020 numbers during COVID, second quarter gross private domestic investment was down 48.8% and then came back with the government stimulus program and was up 82.1%. That's a massive number. And you follow that up in fourth quarter of 2020 with a 24% increase. You put those two together, it's just a massive number. And it's longer term spending, but you can see now we're down 13.5%, and this is line 7 that I'm looking at. We're down 13.5%, and that has basically run its course, and it's not going to turn around anytime soon. That's why I'm concerned about this winter, November, December, January, February, March, going forward, because you have a lot of construction projects that are finishing up, and there are no construction projects behind it necessarily. And so you're going to have some layoffs, I believe, this winter in construction. Take a look, go down to line 13, residential. It tells the same story. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but you can see in 2020, quarter 3 and 4, up 59.9%. Up 34.4%. A lot of housing projects were started at the end of 2020, and they've run their course. You can see right now, negative 14% in Q2 of 2022. It's not going to get better over the next 2 or 3 quarters or 4 quarters. We're kind of dead in the water in that respect. So all the talk, and I guess the reason I mentioned that is that this talk, political talk, that 2 consecutive negative quarters isn't necessarily a recession for GDP. Well, that's technically true, but the problem is if you're looking forward, the NBER, National Bureau of Economic Research, is the entity that declares recessions, right? It's not 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. However, going forward, you take a look at this stuff and you put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, yes, this is not getting any better. There's nothing forward-looking that would indicate improvement. For example, you've got the Fed. They're hiking interest rates. That takes time to cycle through the economy. This is a dampening effect on the economy. That's not going to make GDP better. You've got the end of construction projects. That's not hitting quite yet, but that will start hitting in November, December, January, February going forward. You're going to see significant increases in unemployment. That's not going to help. So the talk that we're technically not in recession, hasn't been declared yet, all this, okay, that's true. But name me something that looks good going forward, and I'll alter my view. So that's just kind of how it looks at this point. I don't have high hopes for the next 6 months or so, but we'll see what happens. I could absolutely be wrong, so who knows.